Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for coming out tonight on this foggy evening. I'm going to call this town council meeting to order this Tuesday, July 9th, 2019. If you would, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, do I have a motion for the consent and approval of the regular agenda? First off, travel policy for the ABC store and annual tax settlement report and order of tax collections. Do I have a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, consent agenda and regular agenda passes. Now, do I have a motion to approve the minutes from June 3rd, 2019 special meeting?
So moved.
Second? Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Motion to approve June 4th, 2019 budget public hearing, budget work session meeting minutes.
So moved.
Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes. June 11th, 2019, the regular meeting and closed session minutes. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
We have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay. June 24th, June 18th, budget meeting and closed session minutes. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Have a second? Okay. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. June 24th, 2019, budget adoption, mid-year retreat meeting minutes. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Takes care of approval of all the minutes. Moving forward, on the public comments this evening, you can speak publicly on any items with the exception of the CUP for Moody 2019-02, Moody Building renovation, CUP 2019-03, Cambria Car Lot, and or CZ 2017-02 in on Cornish. Those will be addressed individually, and you'll be sworn in on the first two. So as we move forward, I'll call you up and you can be sworn in, and then you can speak at that time. Now, moving forward, we will allow, if you would like to speak now, we'd like for you to hold it to 3 minutes. Please fill out a card for Hillary over here, and she'll give it to me. If not, we will move forward with Mr. Tim Gupton. Okay. So do we have anybody else that would like to speak publicly? All right. Okay, now we have a presentation. This is from our town intern, Dalen Powell. Mr. Powell?
I'm going to introduce Mr. Powell, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
The police department for a while has been wanting to solicit some input from the community, from our citizens and visitors and business owners. And this is Dylan Powell. He's working with the town this summer as an intern, and Dylan's going to tell you about the project that he's working on and where we're at.
Thank you, Mr. Powell.
Thank you, Mayor Sellers. Thank you, Captain Miller, Council. Just to add on, quick introduction of myself. My name is Dylan Powell, Master's of Public Administration student at Appalachian. And I do want to take an opportunity. I've been here about 2 months now. I've had the chance to work with pretty much everyone, all the employees, and I just want to let you know you have a wonderful and capable staff. Everyone I've worked with has been great, and I'm looking forward to the next few weeks to finish working with the town. It's been quite an honor. Moving into my presentation, in the past week, I believe the utility bill was sent out for the months of May and June, and everyone who received one of those bills should have also received a community survey from the police department in that bill. purpose of that, purpose of that community survey, as Captain Miller said, we want to get the public's perception of the Blowing Rock Police Department, not necessarily, if they have past experiences, we want that. We also want to know just what they think about the police department, even if they've never interacted with that police department. We also want to identify some of the issues that they think most affects and impacts this town. The survey has 14 questions on it. Most of the questions measure public perception and public perception of the police department and, my apologies, the police department and also the problems in the community, and also has some demographic data just so we can separate, business owners from citizens, residents, things like that, so we can start to break down the data to see what affects certain groups in the town. The hope is to have all the responses back by July 31st. That's the end of this month. And then once we get those responses back, I can take the rest of July and the month of August to have a report ready, do some analysis of the feedback we get, and then have a presentation for you guys at the September Town Council meeting. So I want to encourage all of you, each of you who received a utility bill, please fill out that survey. If you can, send it back. And for anyone in the audience who received the survey, please send it in as well. Please try to answer every question on it. Question number 7, the last one does explicitly say optional. If you want to continue further, you can give us your name and your phone number. But if you don't want to do that, you don't have to. Just fill in the rest of the survey and send it in to us. And please encourage friends and anyone else in town to take the survey and get it back to us by the end of the month. We're really looking forward to getting the responses in, and we think this is going to be a valuable tool for the police department and for the rest of the town. And with that, if you guys have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer.
Do you have any way to pick up or send the survey to renters who don't get the water or sewer bill?
We really don't have any way to do that without having all those addresses. We do intend to do some door-to-door survey with some business owners and some other properties like that don't necessarily get a water bill, but
Okay.
it's really hard for us to know where rental properties are.
And the people that do automatic payment, do they get a copy of the newsletter?
Yes,
Okay.
if they get the paper copy, then they got the survey as well. And it says on the survey, there's a short letter from Chief Miller that says if you do an online payment, you can still stick this survey back in the envelope and send it to Town Hall, or if you just want to stop by, drop it off, that would work as well.
Okay.
Can you pick up a survey here as well?
We can make that available, yes, sir.
We're also working on a way to put that on the website. I'm not sure
That'd be great.
where we're at with that right now, but Bill has been working on that.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Do you think that information, the hotel people could give that to their guests, have them fill it out?
Well, I don't know if we want guests or community members.
It'd be sort of interesting, wouldn't it?
I don't know that,
Well, that's why on the survey, one of the questions is aimed at identifying who you are. Are you a visitor, are you a resident, or are you a business owner? And that helps us figure out what perspective they're coming from when they answer the other question on the survey.
My only thought was that if you wanted this to hear from the visitors, the hotels may put it on the check-in desk and give it to their guests and say, if you'd like to fill out one of these upon your departure, we'd be glad to send it in.
Excellent idea.
Yeah. If that's something we're able to do, we'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, you can do that, see if they'll help you.
Guys,
Thank you for
Thank you.
taking this on.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Thank you,
can't
Mr.
wait
Powell.
to hear that.
thank you so much.
It's interesting.
Be ready to come back and present, and thank you guys for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, moving forward, Mr. Kevin Rothrock, this is on the CUP 2019-02 Moody Building renovation. Now, if you'd like to speak publicly on this particular CUP, you please step up to Hillary and be sworn in. And this is the Moody Building renovation.
You better not swear on the mic.
Thank you, gentlemen. All right, Kevin.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Be glad to present several conditional use permits to you tonight. And the first one is conditional use permit 2019-02 for the Moody Building renovation. As requested from you from RWL 1 LLC, which is Bob Lovern, and requesting this conditional use permit to convert the old Moody Furniture Building to a restaurant and retail establishment, and also add a surface parking lot. The subject property is at 125 Sunset Drive and is zone central business. Go to the next slide, please. One more. This slide shows the site plan. I want to go over a couple of things that are on that. The street setback on Sunset Drive is 15 feet, and that's measured from the back of the sidewalk. The rear and side setbacks is 5 feet. The front of the existing building, including the porch, encroaches into the street setback. In fact, the front 3 or 4 feet of the building are in that street setback. The front porch is planned to be extended along the left front of the building to provide access for ADA and to meet the North Carolina Building Code. On this same side, there will be an elevated patio area on the west side of the building. Both the patio and front porch extension and access will encroach into the 15-foot street setback and be located approximately 6 feet from the back of the sidewalk. Now, that sidewalk is going to be torn up and put back with the streetscape project. Based on the proposed uses, we're talking about parking now and access. Based on the proposed uses, the building square footage, and any parking credits that were calculated on those previous uses that were on the property, 7 parking spaces are required for this project. And restaurant use was used to calculate that parking. If retail is the ultimate use of the property, the parking would be more than sufficient to meet the land use code. And the applicant is proposing 24 parking spaces, and one of those being a van accessible ADA space. Some of the parking spaces, I think maybe up to 6, and the applicant could confirm that, would be set aside for tenants of 2 other properties that he has in the vicinity. He owns the Nico building, and so some of the employees could park there, and also on the corner of the Oz building, which are final touches, and above that, there are 2 apartments that he rents out. And so parking could be provided on this property for that and would be reserved for that. Given all that parking, there's still sufficient parking for the proposed use of the property, even at the highest use requirement of restaurant. Access to the lot would be from Sunset Drive. That's shown with a 2-way driveway. The previous project was approved with a 1-way in and then leaving out through the Maple Street lot, and that's been changed with this new submittal. The site plan shows that 3 public spaces on Sunset Drive would be removed to provide adequate site distance as you leave the site. And I think that you can see the site triangle here in the bottom and the 3 spaces that would be removed.
On the front?
Right. there's a space here, one here, and then this third one. This third one was, because this site triangle cuts across there, for safety's sake, we felt like that would need to be removed as well. Talk about stormwater falling on the site, collected in the parking lot, will be directed to an underground detention system and will be designed to meet the town code standards. Drainage from storm events would be detained on site. Go next slide, please. Be detained, collected, and then stored in this stormwater chamber underneath the street, underneath the parking lot, and then a connection out to Sunset Drive. And that, I believe that connection's already been made for that stub out on Sunset for stormwater. Other utilities have already been installed, so they won't have to be done later after streetscape. An additional sprinkler system, water tap, sewer tap, and the applicant has already paid for those taps. In addition, has already paid for the improvements along the front of the property for curb and gutter and sidewalk, the material costs of those, and has already made a payment to the town to cover those expenses. As far as landscaping, the code requires a 4-foot buffer between the site and adjacent properties. There's an area in the back where it's a little bit too small, so the current design would have to be shifted just a little bit to accommodate the full 4 feet. And then we had one note, the only other change on this landscape plan is to take this tree proposed here and move it over here, because that's about a 4-foot strip between that and the building. It wouldn't have opportunity to mature and grow, so we said to move that tree over to behind the building.
How big is that buffer right there?
Right here, 4 feet. Right now, it's the edge of there's a fence row, and then it slopes off to the edge of the hot dog, Dino's Hot Dogs place. The west side of the property will have a, if you will, go back one more, please. The west side of the property, this is the ADA handicapped space, and there'll be a sidewalk to this point, and then we'll ramp up to this highest elevation. It's about a 2-foot wall right here, and then there'll be access into the rear of the building, access into the side, and also access across the front. And then from the sidewalk on Sunset will be a short ramp to meet code to be able to get into the building on that side.
So the footprint now is the large rectangle,
That's it. Yes, ma'am.
okay?
This is,
And how much are they going into the easement behind Nico's and?
into the easement,
Warnock Real Estate, Realty?
into the easement?
Isn't there an easement behind there that goes
Right.
back to that other property
There's a,
in the upper, left-hand corner?
right. This is
Mr.
Jim
Brown.
Brown's property here.
Yeah.
There's a 10-foot alley from the property line to here, and then there's a 5-foot easement across the back of the Nico property here.
So,
But all the improvements on this property are on this property.
That was discussed at length, I believe, before,
Yes, sir.
and approved.
Yes, sir. The improvements are a little different this time, that it's not as extensive, a little smaller footprint. But there was a sidewalk plan on this, on the original plan. A couple, first architectural spot right there. As far as the architectural, a lot of the changes have been completed over the past year to the building, some improvements to the roof, the foundation, windows and doors have been replaced already. Mr. Lovern did that, I believe, last summer and fall to make some improvements just to the appearance of the building. But some of the others, garage door being proposed on the west side. One more slide. This one right here. So this is the west side facing back of the Blowing Rock Properties. So a garage door here for patio access. But this shows current condition, and this is proposed. And this shows the ramp from the back parking lot up and over and back down.
Kevin,
Yes, sir.
before you go any further, I noticed up in the northeast corner there, where the trash is going to be stored, I noticed that there's two public parking spaces that he's providing. Is that true behind that?
At planning board, the thought was to provide 2 additional spaces here in the Maple Street lot, but the town does not own beyond that line right there, so
I know, but is the owner suggesting that he would be providing 2 additional parking spaces that he's using from the, taken out of Sunset?
at one time, before the
Oh, at
planning
one
board,
time.
that was a consideration, but because of the unknowns back here in this area, and just we can't provide this one because the town doesn't own the property and he doesn't own the property.
Oh, he doesn't? He doesn't own that property, huh?
He owns to there, so that one couldn't be done. This one is possible, but we just took that out of the discussion when we went to planning board.
Oh. Well, I
If
see
you wanna
it's still
revisit
on-
it, we could,
It's still on the plans,
It is, but
so I just
we-
thought it was part of the deal.
the planning board was late. This came early and the applicant didn't have time to make that change. But what I did show on the next plan is, this is the grading and drainage plan, and so I wanted to show that this is where the dumpster's gonna be moved according to that revised first site plan.
Speak to me about him paying for the sidewalk, material costs. Is that typical
Yes, sir.
for everybody up and down that road?
No, for new projects. Similar
So-
to,
Is that at all included in Iron Mountain's original price to us? If so, they owe us a credit.
no, they paid the town Mr. Lovren paid the town directly.
But I mean, are we paying Iron Mountain to do it too?
We are paying Iron Mountain, but they're paying us the difference.
Back?
Yes, sir.
That's right. So the original contract included sidewalk and guttering throughout the length, and then any new projects would be reimbursable to the town.
Right.
And losing these 3 parking places for site distance. Okay, I understand what you're saying.
Yes, sir.
Could you ever think of making those motorcycle and/or golf cart parking? You don't really lose sight distance with those type vehicles.
I didn't consider that. I mean, it could be, depending on what's on the golf cart, it could be some difficulty seeing through there, but I could understand that an exception could be made, especially in this lower space.
I mean, that's a lot of parking places to lose.
I understand that, and Mr. Lover and I talked about that back and forth multiple times, and ultimately, we looked at the amount of parking being provided off-site that's not there today. And so there's a balance of losing 3, and I know these are private spaces, but he is providing parking for removing some potential cars off of the street for the tenants that he has on Main Street. And so,
I understand that, but it'd be more palatable if we could use it.
Sure.
What's it gonna be used for if not? Just sit there and look at it?
as it's designed, yes, sir.
Is there any way of making the dumpster access for the garbage truck off the parking lot, being they'll be coming around there to pick those businesses up in the back anyway, instead of having to cut in and go down all the way to the end to pick it up and then come back out to the ingress and egress?
Why not?
Oh, just go through our parking area?
Yeah, you gotta come around that way to pick those
They're gonna
businesses
pick
up
these
anyway.
up, right?
You mean if they move?
Where you had those
Yeah.
two parking
Yeah.
spaces, could that not be a way of picking that dumpster site up with the garbage truck instead of been there coming around that way anyway to pick up behind the
It could be,
restaurant and
yes, sir,
everything?
it could be, it's,
I think it would be easier to do that and safer with the garbage truck than trying to send it down the driveway and turn around and come back or back
yeah,
back out.
right, they are servicing right here, the back of the Oyster House, and one here. Big question for Matt or Public Works, but if that's something you'd like to see, we could make that a condition or have the site plan changed to reflect that. The only other thing I had was that the waivers requested are reflected in the CUP for that setback. It's kind of difficult being, for this site to develop without it because of the need to provide ADA access to the front. John, if I had, typically you have to provide the same access for the general public and those with ADA needs. So that, got a thumbs up. So that, you don't want to send those with ADA needs around the back of the building and the general public goes in the front. So trying to use this building and meet the building code and it already being forward of the setback line, that's why the setback waivers are requested
Well, how did we manage to approve it before?
with setback waivers.
And he's asking for more?
No, he's asking for the same thing.
In
It
the
re-
front,
In the front.
He's
Makes
just,
sense to me.
yeah, he's just entering and exiting differently than what we approved originally.
The original plan, he not only came over here, he also extended the front deck over here and he came over on this side.
Which is the reason for the one parking place, I guess.
No,
I mean, driveway.
he's, one of the changes he made is he's provided 3 more parking spaces than he had on the first plan.
so is one of the waivers also that the, north buffer is gonna be smaller?
No, I think they can make the change
So
and make
where's
the
the
shift.
buffer that's not gonna make 4 feet?
It's right in here, unless, Jason, if you made that correction yet? We already made the correction. It's just, according to this, we got the 4 feet.
Okay.
But the original plan, it was skewed down a couple of feet.
And where's the buffer on the west side?
It's got, go to the landscape plan. Got a buffer down this portion, then he's got the sidewalk here, but he's got landscaping in this portion here.
And is that on the, porch itself?
No, there's the porch. This
So
is
it's
the patio.
underneath it?
No, this is this open grassed area, landscaped area,
And where are the tables going for outside?
right here.
I mean, if it's a restaurant.
So when we get, when public spaces are taken away, how much does the applicant pay for those spaces?
They don't pay.
I thought we had a parking
No,
fund.
you do if they're not providing any parking. They're paying into the fund because they can't provide parking. He's providing 24.
So he's gonna give us 3 public spacing on his lot?
No. That's not the plan, but y'all can ask that question if you'd like.
What
Planning
he's
board
doing
didn't
is-
make a recommendation to that either.
I have the
Our,
same concern.
Yes, so our new sunset plan is taking away how many spots? Forget this guy.
Yeah.
How many places are we taking away? 6?
Three.
Three? Three. Okay, so this would take 3 more away,
Yes.
and there's no penalty right now to this guy for taking 3 parking spaces away?
Well, I looked at it like this. The overall benefit of an off-street parking, whether or not they're private or designated, that's more than we have today on that piece of property. So that was a rationale. Or you could say, look, we want you to designate 3 spaces, and y'all can have that conversation with Mr. Lovern. But when it came from planning board, there was no discussion about the 3 spaces.
Planning board did not talk about taking 3 public parking spaces away?
No, they didn't make a decision regarding that.
Did they talk about it?
I think they did the first month. It came in May and then June. I don't remember discussion in June.
You can always make that a condition.
Did you ever find out, just out of curiosity here, if that was a given right or whether that is, they have to ask permission, the access to the property there? I know Mr. Page had asked that in, reading here, he had asked that question at the planning meeting. I was just curious what the answer to that was.
They have rights to use the property. How they access it is up to between the applicant and the council. The original plan, as you recall, they were going to lose 2 spaces, but they were also going to minimize coming out on the Sunset by going out through, it was one way. And so that was the trade-off then. You know, if anyone's going to build a parking lot, they're going to have a driveway off the street, any piece of property. Otherwise, they don't have space to provide parking. If the school was going to provide a new bus lot, on that side of the street, there's going to be loss of parking. It's just something you have to wrestle
I
with.
understand that part. I was just wanting to know whether it was a given that with that piece of property that you had to open that up as an ingress or an egress, give them a way into their property, you know,
They already had a way in, right?
yeah, with the common driveway.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, there's gravel across there, and the alleyway doesn't serve this property, as I understand. It serves Mr. Brown's property.
So before, his egress in the back was onto the town's property.
That's right.
And he was at the mercy of somebody not parking there illegally. Nobody could get out the back. Is that right?
Right. If they're on his property, I guess he could have them towed,
Right.
but yeah.
It wouldn't probably take that long to happen.
Right.
How are you gonna prevent people from making a left out of that? Are you gonna
You-
have a right,
You could have a.
a right
no-
only sign?
You could have a no right only sign, right turn only. That was a suggestion at planning board. It was not it was not part of the motion.
Why would you prevent them from making a left turn?
Just thinking of access and traffic. Them having to
Did
go
that, you
across
need
2
all
lanes
that
of
side
traffic.
distance.
It's 1 lane.
The houses, everybody else can make it.
Yeah.
Left
Yeah,
turn.
Meadowbrook makes a left turn
Everybody
across
can make a left turn out of the driveway.
Yeah,
Alpine Inn.
Steve Barker got their sign.
Toastery makes a left turn.
And I think with taking that third parking space should give you enough view shed going that way to be able to make that turn, should you?
That was the idea.
Right.
Yes, sir.
I just feel like we can't just lose 3 spots, guys, willy-nilly.
make it a condition.
I mean, I don't know how,
Well, I'd rather lose them than try to get out of there.
Well, you're actually gaining parking spaces versus the
you're
original.
not gaining it unless he lets the public park there. That's public parking in front of him.
Right.
Public parking, not his, that
aware of
means that I can park there and not go to his restaurant in front of, parallel park, or for a school function or whatever. Right, and if I'm not going to his property for something, why would I park on his property?
Well, to me, it's a traffic hazard if you're gonna do this, in and out,
Easy, don't go there.
if we're gonna do it, it's a hazard if you don't remove those parking places. You can't see to get out the road in a lot of places in this town, as we've talked this week.
That's right. Across the street on Garden Circle, is it Garden Circle? Greenway Court coming out.
Try
It's
Chestnut.
worse than this.
Try Chestnut in the main.
Either Chestnut, either one, Chestnut Drive or Circle.
We need to work on that too. Not tonight.
Y'all want to move
Okay.
on with the public hearing?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Kevin, would you like to?
Bob, I'll let you take the stage.
Thanks a lot.
You're welcome. You answer the question.
Boy, I thought you did a good job.
Thanks for coming out.
Thank you. My name is Bob Levering. I'm sorry to be here again. Good questions. I think I have some answer for them. When I came to town, I did not own the Oz building, I did not own the Cable building, and I did not own the Moody building. Thank you. There was some illegal parking going on or parking on other people's property. And I'm trying to rectify that. I think, you know, when I look at it from a perspective, from my perspective, and I think it should also be looked at from the town's perspective, I think that I have possibly increased the parking for the town by nearly 12 spaces. And the way I look at that is that there were 2 apartments over the Oz building, and those were parking on the public street. And I've taken those off the public street, and I've placed them on the Moody property. And one of the reasons I bought the Moody property was to provide parking. It's a complicated issue on the alley. I'm not even sure Moody has a right to use the alley. So that's as far as the title is concerned. And then there were 4 parking spots that were used by the Cable building, which is, you know, now Nico and Petras. They were parking on Mr. Brown's property and whatever. I've taken those spaces off that property, off the street. And so that's 6 spaces that are now really off the street or non-illegal. The Moody building could have been many things. It could have had the house behind it that I tore down. Anybody else who would have bought it, I think, would have developed more along Sunset. And so the parking would have been more intense for those uses. Not more intense for those uses, but it would have been parking that would have been maybe more, it would have taken away from the parking lot that I'm providing. And so what I mean by that is that the Moody building is going to be overparked. And that means that when you overpark a building, that those people aren't forced to go someplace else. So there might be 3, 4, 5, up to 6 spaces where they're going to be able to park on the parking that I'm going to provide, instead of being no parking back on the street. So I honestly don't look at it as a loss of 3 spaces. I look at it as almost a gain of 12. And then you can do a little subtraction there. You can say, okay, well, you know, what about the 3? And you say, yeah, there are 3. I mean, previously approved, we're losing 2, and that's been approved by the commission. And on this particular plan, you're losing 1. But that really, I think, provides more benefit for me, because, you know, it's been mentioned that if there was a drive-through to the public parking, people would end up parking in my lot. I mean, that would be difficult. And, you know, there's another aspect to it, is that if there were a drive-through through to the public parking and exiting through Maple, there could be a very good tendency. I mean, if I was fantastically successful, which I hope to be, but I'm not that ambitious, then the public parking could become my parking lot if that pass-through were there. And so then you could say, well, instead of my having 24 spaces, now I have 70 spaces, because my tenants could park on yours. So there were a lot of complications on it, and I think by, you know, taking away exiting through Maple, I think have eased some problems that may have been created for the town, may have been created for myself or the tenant. And I think in the broad picture, I'm adding a lot of parking, and I'm taking a lot of parking off the street.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So just to clarify, you bought the Cable Building with Nico and those two shops in it? You
Yes,
own-
ma'am.
Okay. What is the one, the Oz, what is that Oz building you're talking about?
The Oz building is on the other corner. It's the brick building on
Venture
Sun.
and Oz, what?
Where Story's
This one.
soda shop used to be.
Okay,
Final
that
touches.
has no parking.
That's
So what you're saying to us is you've actually added 12 public parking spots?
No,
So-
ma'am. No, ma'am, I didn't say that. I said what I've done is I've taken parking that was parking on public parking space and taking it off that.
Right, so the employees of Nico's and the tenants above the Oz building
Yes, ma'am.
can now park in yours. And have you put that in the deeds on those properties?
No, ma'am,
So
but
that
I've,
you have, that parking is on the Moody building that runs with the land?
no, ma'am.
So then you haven't done that?
Well, I cannot say that I will forever own all those properties.
Right,
But, and the way I would,
unless it's in the deed.
and it won't be in the deed, because I can't do that.
Okay, so
But-
you're
but-
not taking the parking off, the public parking off, you're not adding to the public parking?
I don't know how to answer that. I will answer it one way. I think that by overparking the Moody property, the way I am, even if I were to, for some reason, sell the Nico and the Patriot building and sell the Oz building, if I were to sell those and all of a sudden those people were back on the street,
And the 3 other parking's not available?
then I think that the Moody building would be so overparked that there would be no need for those people to park on the street like everybody else. I can't say this for a fact, but I don't know of anybody in town that has bought a building and with a huge lot and not developed the lot to the maximum potential. And instead of overparking a project, scooted by with the minimum or paid a parking in lieu, and where the people end up on the street.
The parking behind Blowing Rock Real Estate, don't they have deeded parking spaces that go with the
With the building? She probably owns that property.
Brumbles, they have for the, above that property there, the residential above Brumble's, who's the owner there?
Well, what you've got to keep in mind first and foremost, this has already been approved once. Now he's coming back and increasing the parking,
Right.
okay? So we need to keep that in mind as well.
But it's taken away 3 public spots where
out front.
it wasn't before.
That's right. And there's the simpler way around that, and open up 3 spots in his parking lot for public parking, which he can put signage. I mean,
Well-
that's simple.
I-
So what else you want to talk about?
That's frankly a door I'm unwilling to open. And the reason I can't do it is because, I mean, it's like saying, okay, 2 can park here, and then, oh, I thought I was one of the 2, I'm one of the 12, I'm one of the 18. I didn't know that there were other 14 people parking here. One thing, from the prior approval, when we were exiting through the public parking, I am taking away 1 additional parking space. 1. Now, I have provided a plan to where I could give you that space back on my property from the public parking lot. I'm willing to give you that land, I'm willing to give you that space, which makes us flush.
I don't see that. Where's that?
Okay. If you see where the dumpster is, and you see the 2 public parking spaces back there that didn't quite work out, I think what could work out is if we condense that to 1 space, I think that could work out fine.
Except the
And now we're-
garbage truck's gonna be coming in there.
Right, and the dumpster will probably move, depending on how it
No,
lands.
Well, it could
The
come
way
in
the way I
town's
would
parking.
look at it is if you move the dumpster back to the corner, he might be able to pick up 1 or 2 more parking space within his own boundary there, within the current parking area. And then the dumpsters would come in from the big parking lot and get the trash. And there would be 2 more parking spaces right where the thing is right now.
In front of the dumpster?
I think one problem you're going to see with the dumpster is you try to bring in one of the big trucks in the Maple parking lot to empty a dumpster, and you got all those cars parked in there. How's it going to get turned around?
I don't know, but I saw one today, it was a 44-footer
In Maple parking lot?
in the Maple parking lot. How about that one? It was about 10 o'clock in the morning unloading at that seafood place.
Here's,
Backed right in.
may I show you
One that
what,
took-
Yes, please,
I think
please.
the current plan is that what we can do. Jason, if this isn't possible, please.
Those are only 32 foot.
We've taken and moved this dumpster forward more onto the center of our property. And then back here, entirely on our parking, entirely on our property, we can provide a city parks, a parking space that they can access from the town park.
And you'll have that paved and
Do that.
like a
Yes, ma'am.
normal, because it's grass back there right now.
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
You will do that? You would do that?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
So that's one parking.
And the dumpster,
Well, that's the only one we're losing.
You wrote it down.
Excuse me?
I wrote it down.
Well, I think we already presented it, even though
Okay.
I think the planning board said it's kind of complicated and maybe it's just better to keep it as it is. But, you know, I think there's also I mean, parking spaces. And so, rather than provide a parking space there for you, I think it would be nice if we put the dumpster back where it was and provide a nice public egress from your parking lot through my parking lot. And that would be really, really nice. Because right now, they're crawling over everything. I mean, if we were to take and let's say we put that dumpster back over here, let's say we forget a parking space there, let's say we might make a nice sidewalk for the public to egress, so they can get onto Main Street, get onto Sunset without crawling over hedges and trees and things like that. I think that would be the best bet for everybody.
To walk through the alleyways,
Excuse me?
to walk through the alleyways there on your property?
No, ma'am, your parking lot is there. We can put our dumpster back over there. And we put a nice egress for the public to go over our parking lot to get to your parking lot. Because right now, they don't have a way to do it. I think that would be, I mean. I think
It'd be
that would
good for
nice.
both parties.
Excuse me?
It would be good for both parties.
I think so, sir.
I'm more concerned with losing 3 parking spots. I don't know about you guys.
Well, like I said, he can, if he so wishes, the first 3 parking spots coming into his parking lot, you can put up public parking signs, 3 spaces,
I could, but I won't.
okay?
Yeah, I think it's not, and I appreciate, it's a better scheme than I've seen, but we also have retail all on Sunset.
Yes.
And I think they are concerned about where their customers are gonna park. And losing 3 that we cannot go into your parking lot is a concern for the other retail people on Sunset. And I guess that's where, I'm assuming that's where you're coming from.
Yeah, that whole street, you know, I mean, if you wanted to give us that corner there where the dumpster is and add to the Maple parking, that looks like 3 spots. I don't know if that would work out. Where's Kevin?
That's Nolan Boyd.
You only get
You don't need to look at that.
There's only one there?
You can only get one space
Yeah.
in that little corner of the
Okay, I'm looking at the GIS on my laptop here. I see what you're saying, because it looks like the Oyster Place right there.
The property line don't match up as it.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm looking at. Okay.
You're looking at a brand.
That's actually pretty close, these property lines. I mean, this is over here a little bit.
Yeah, there'd be no way to, turn that white car at the top. There's no way to,
It's
get in there.
The only way is to come in at an angle like
Yeah.
what's on that plan, and you could get one. So,
I
I'm gonna accept that one, and then have a
No.
little path through there.
That one, I've seen the, so I cut through there all the time, I walk through there all the time. And I've
Across
seen
my property?
No,
Oh.
across the public parking lot.
You've been trespassing?
Excuse me?
No, I don't walk across your property. I walk through the Maple parking lot, and I've seen in that corner there, a truck or something parking up like diagonally there, and it blocks things. So I don't see how that one, diagonal parking lot there would.
All right, let's move forward. You have 2 others that would like to speak?
Yes, yeah.
I'd like to ask Matt, is Matt out there? Where would you, which way would the garbage truck go in, the way it looks right now, without parking in the back? That one parking space.
I can tell you, the Oyster House, they pick that up and they back in, because we have to hook in the back.
So you're gonna go through that back corner to
Where
get
the
to the dumpster?
Where that black car is.
Right. I don't know.
Is that what you would do?
You mean to our parking space?
No.
To our
No,
dumpster?
I'm talking the
I'm
dumpster.
sorry, I'm sorry.
The dumpster. How are you gonna get the garbage truck into the dumpster if it's in that back corner.
I mean, you know, our dumpsters are all real low, we have to back into them to hook, so as long as we can back up to it, we're good.
So you
So
would
you
back
back
up
in-
to it from.
You'll back in
from-
off Sunset, correct?
You'd pull into the lot and just back in, pick it up.
Yeah.
Right, correct.
Off Sunset. Okay. Did you have a couple other individuals you would like to have speak?
Excuse me.
You have two others you would like to have speak?
I had them in case you had questions.
Really not enough to rent.
Do we have any further questions, guys? Okay. Al?
Go ahead.
The plan we just saw was drawn by an engineer or a draftsman, or who drew that?
That's by Jason.
See, you're an engineer?
Yes.
Yeah. So, okay, that settled me. I plead not guilty.
Me
Trying
too.
to replace
Okay.
an engineer.
All right.
Now, I don't mean any I don't mean any disrespect
I understand.
whatsoever, but I believe we spent a couple of Christmases together. And if that were gonna be a restaurant, when could we expect its medium rare steak?
Moving forward, do we have
Well-
any others that would like to speak for or against?
I would like to answer that because I think that's a pertinent question.
Thank you.
The reason I think it's a pertinent question, not because of the steak, but because I've been negligent in moving the project forward, and I've been given every opportunity by the commission, by the planning board to do so. And I've got Mr. Cash here, who has been coordinating with Mountain, what is it? Iron Mountain. And to move things forward, our schedule is your schedule. We plan to do our paving the same time you do your paving. We plan to do our flat work the same time you do your flat work. We hope to use the same contractors you use. I was a little disappointed by the planning meeting and, by putting off to the next one, but that did not set us back on our schedule, did it? And so I can't tell you when we will have a tenant, but I can tell you when we will do the construction.
Can I ask you a question?
But your intentions are good.
Excuse me?
Your intentions are good.
Yes, sir, they are.
Do we have any others that would like to speak for or against this? You would need to be sworn in.
He has,
He was. Yes, sir. Would
Like to speak?
Could you speak, could you step up here, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'd like to use one of your.
Okay. If you would, state your name and your address.
Okay. My name is James Brown, Jim Brown. My wife and I own this property. If I can figure out. That's right. There you go.
Push the little inch, there you go.
Oh, okay. I own this property and have owned it for a number of years. Can anyone hear me okay, as long as I'm not in front of that? There is an easement here of 15 feet, which has existed for a long time, and it was granted by the Green family in the mid or late 1800s, and it was for the access to my property. Mr. Lover now states that he's not sure that that easement included the rights to his property, but his deed clearly states owners, plural, S, that this property has access to the existing easement, which is 15 feet essentially. He had, behind the NIACO building and all that, he has very close to 2.5 feet only. There is no parking for those buildings, but they have continuously parked there against my wishes and requests because there's only 2.5 feet, and I have not exhorted to having anyone towed, to waiting to see what was going to happen to this. The obvious access to this property is through the existing easement, which would not require setting forward the sidewalk. It's also endangered by the fact that this sidewalk proposed here is 2 feet high. I cannot imagine the town would not require a setback along here since it's an easement. Kevin Rothrock says he could build a fence and he could build a sidewalk, but in fact, he's building a 2.5-foot high sidewalk, which imposes on my ability to ingress and egress here because town requires 18. So unless a variance were given for me to do 15, and there's a problem with this property here on the corner coming out an additional 5 feet, but it may be adverse possession because it's been used for many, many, many years. If this access was used, accessing this property, going around the building, coming out here, parallel parking could probably be done on both sides, giving town or giving this property even an additional 6 or 8 parking places, and not require taking away ingress and egress of 3 spaces in this area. So I think this is foolish back here. Nobody's gonna come through this back area, public parking lot to try to get in here. Dumpster's gonna be very problematic getting in here. I am gonna have to ask the city for ingress and egress from Main Street.
Up a hill? Isn't that, doesn't your property sit down?
It is, yes, it is essentially 8 feet below street level.
Right.
Which I am planning on developing or selling to develop. And I would like to have this access, ingress and egress. And I would like to see Bob Lovern, and I've asked him, and he originally granted that to me, and then after I'd spent considerable monies addressing that issue, he took that idea away because he wanted to build this additional extension of the building and this 2-foot high sidewalk. I'm of course opposed to it because it hurts me. I think there should be at least a 5-foot setback from the easement towards his property. And he does have access to this easement to go in, around, and only out and parallel parking here. So I think that I'm very grateful that city is willing to look at this again, because I assumed that when planning committee approved this, that it was pretty much of a done deal. And I almost didn't show up. But I think I have a case in that sidewalk of 2 feet should not be done. I should be allowed to ingress and egress here, and I don't think we should lose parking places here. It might be only 1 less, I don't know the particulars of that, but this traffic should be coming out only through that place. And I appreciate what you said very much. And I think unless somebody has a question for me, that's all I have to say, but I appreciate any consideration thereof.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Kevin? Where's Kevin?
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Appreciate it.
Can you come show us a look? So I know sometimes these overlays are a little bit skewed because it's the Google map on top of the photo or whatever. What's the measurement in between those buildings there? Because it looks to me like there's no room beside that building.
Right there, hang on.
I mean, did you move the building over?
No. There's the power pole, I believe, right here. So go back to the aerial, if you will.
Yeah, the aerial looks like that line is right along
there's
the building.
Right there's the property line. And so it comes out. You know,
So
right-
that white line is not the property line?
It represents the property line, but as it's overlaid here, it's really that way. It should be here.
So it should be from that,
I can't really hold this very straight.
is that a, power?
That's the power pole right there across the street.
Okay, so where those cars are, along the, rear part of those cars is where the.
That's probably in the alley. There's a 10-foot alley between this property line and this building. And then there's a 5-foot easement in addition to that on this property,
So how wide is a car?
6 feet, 5.5.
Because he's got an
Wide
easement.
this way?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's got an easement from Sunset to go, Mr. Brown, to get to his property. A deeded easement, right? And how wide is that deeded easement?
The easement's 5 feet, the alley is an additional 10.
And a car is 6 feet.
Right.
So are we getting, by the sidewalk there, are you carving into that 15 feet at all?
I'm not. But the
Or is-
project is not. They're building that wall on the property line, and everything is to the inside. So if I'm facing the building, the sidewalk ramps up, and there's a wall to support the sidewalk because it comes up. And it's, at the highest point, it's 2 feet high. Like that.
So that does not change the 15 feet there now
No,
at all?
at all.
Well, have we not seen this movie before?
Yes, it's on rerun.
We have seen him before.
I thought we did.
Okay, do
Well,
we
it was so
have,
good, we wanted to see it.
Good reviews.
do we have anyone else that would like to speak for or against this project? Okay. Moving forward, do we have a motion?
I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve or disapprove?
I'd like to make a motion that, just to clarify, Kevin, we're losing 3 public parking spaces with this new configuration?
Yes, ma'am. Doug and I were talking back there. There may be a way to just lose 2 with restriping when the project's done, but we're not real confident in that. We're trying to figure that out.
I'd like to make a motion to disapprove this. I do not want to lose half a parking space. That's on Sunset, for all the businesses and the school on Sunset.
We have a second? Okay. We did not have a second for Virginia's motion.
I make a motion to approve as presented with the condition that Mr. Lovin will designate 2 or 3 public spaces in his parking lot, depending on how many y'all can come up with. But if it's 3, I would like those spaces to be designated in his parking lot.
Do we have a second for Sue's motion?
Second.
I'd second that, you too.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, he has said he wouldn't give up the first 3, so it's his choice.
Well, once, that's part of the motion, so he would have,
I didn't hear that in the motion.
that's
Yeah,
what Sue
That's
said.
what she made.
That's what Sue said. Yeah,
I
she
would
made
say
a
if he
motion.
can designate 4 for those people that are living in the hotels, he can designate 3 for public parking for us.
Now, so we have a motion. Sue made a motion that he designate 3 public parking spaces in his parking lot. That
At
was-
his discretion,
at his
I want
dis-
that included.
Okay, at his discretion, good enough. We have
Can
that.
you do that, Sue?
That's fine.
Yeah,
Okay, we have that seconded. Mr. Steele?
What was it, I'm sorry?
Doug,
That he
Doug.
designate wherever he
Doug did.
wants those public
Doug seconded.
places to be.
Okay, I know you are fighting
And
over
you said 3, Sue?
it. Any further discussion, guys?
Now, I want the motion read by the clerk.
The motion is to approve with Mr. Levin to just designate 3 parking spots at his discretion for public parking. And Doug seconded that.
Okay, all those in favor?
Wait a minute now. I want to ask the attorney, do you see any red flags here?
In terms of whether you could support what you just moved to do.
Yeah.
No, because I think that eliminating those public spaces is a request on the part of the applicant that you don't have to grant.
Okay,
Okay.
thanks.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Okay.
All right, Moving forward, we have the CUP 2019-03 Cambria Car Lot. If you would like to speak on this, would you please step over to Ms. Hubner to be sworn in?
That's what you were saying. Oh, hand it.
Was looking at designated parking, so
All right, Kevin.
Okay.
All right.
The next CUP request is from Ron and Diane Cambria for their car lot at 7855 Valley Boulevard. They originally got a conditional use permit in 1996 for Mountain Motors car lot, and they want to expand the potential uses of their property from vehicle sales to also include retail sales, office, and restaurant possibilities. The property is zoned general business. The property's been used for motor vehicle sales on and off since 1996, but over the past several years it's been used less and less. And then as late as last year, there was moped sales, and it was similar to auto sales, so we allowed them to do that. But then there's been other requests for some other types of uses there, so we suggested that Mr. Cambria come in and make a request to change that CUP to an amendment that would allow those other types of uses and just approve those through a zoning permit process. The building is approximately 400 square feet, and that's after adding a bathroom last year to meet the North Carolina Building Code. There's access, there's a driveway cut on 321. There's also one on Sunset Drive. There's also a small driveway connection through the back of the property on the Maple Drive. There are 9 parking spaces on the site, including one that's an ADA van accessible space that was added last year. And based on the available parking and the size of the building, all of those proposed uses could be permitted, and the land use code would be satisfied with respect to parking. This project went to the planning board on June 26, and they recommended approval of the CUP amendment. That's the site pretty much as currently, except for the bathroom addition that's over on the right side of it. And then the driveway cut you could see there. And then this is the survey that was provided for the property. Shows the gravel lot and shows the little addition that was added to the building. So
Where's the cut to Maple?
it's just a driveway off the back side that goes right up. My laser. Watch
In
out.
between the bushes there?
Yeah, it's just an access that comes up through here.
How big is that acreage?
Quarter acre, roughly. I think that's right. I think it's about a quarter acre. But in your packet, I included the amendment to the CUP and the CUP that was approved in '96, and also that site and the aerial view. I'd be glad to answer any other questions you might have, and Mr. Cambria is here to answer your questions as well.
Any questions, guys, for Kevin?
if it was a restaurant, how large a seating could they have? Is it 5 to 1?
Parking, the ratio is, it requires more in general business. It's one parking space per 100 square feet. So they'd have to have 4 parking spaces, and then they could have another, they could have some outdoor seating of about 20-some outdoor seats, but we would regulate that through,
It's around 20 seats.
yes, sir.
Did they do a drive-through there if it was a restaurant?
Only if they come back and, they couldn't do a drive-through in that building. They'd have to come back and change the plans and totally start over. Drive-through restaurant is not included as one of those uses. If they were going to do a
But not
drive-through,
a restaurant, Starbucks,
it's the same deal. If they're going to do a drive-through, that's
Yeah.
not a permitted use in this classification.
with no seating. Could they do a drive-through coffee place, no seating?
If they came back here,
It would have to come back to us?
yes, yes. That's
What
not
about
a,
just walking up? and
walking
getting
up is
something?
fine, yeah.
So
That,
they can walk up, it could be a hot dog,
yes, that's right,
it could
yes,
be
ma'am.
yogurt, ice cream.
Whatever sells.
Whatever, so-
But yes, they could do that.
Okay.
cannabis.
Blue Deer.
Cannabis.
Blue Deer, yeah.
Blue Deer.
Could they have food trucks in there?
No,
Why not?
it's itinerant merchants.
It's,
An itinerant merchant,
it's not set,
that's right,
comes and goes.
right.
Do we have to approve all of these, or just some, is it a package deal?
They're requesting that so that they're not coming back for you for, it might be retail of whatever, and they want to have the options, and that's what they're requesting. You don't have to approve that, no.
But if they have to add or subtract, they gotta come back to somebody, to that building.
If they're adding on to the building or anything, yes,
Add or yeah. They
yes,
touch the building, they gotta come back to somebody.
right.
So essentially, they approve your disapproving or approving the existing building.
Right.
So anything forward from there, they have to come back to us.
Right.
So
That's
there's-
why-
Actually,
there's
to the
no-
planning board.
That's why the CUP is in place, because they've got to come back to this council before it's approved. See? So, all he's asking for is to get rid of the parking lot deficit, whatever it is.
Yeah, not limited to
Yeah,
just
Not
car
limited
sales,
just to a parking
but
lot,
open it up.
But give him some options that he can market to other people. That's what he wants,
Yes, sir.
right? That's what I thought. Okay.
Any other questions for Mr. Rothrock?
Not right now, but I'd like to hear Mr. Camber.
Okay. Those for and against? Mr. Cambria, how are you?
Thanks for your time tonight. I believe he covered everything that's, what I'm asking for is probably allowed, I believe. So I just have a lot of people who want to rent the property in the past, and I wasn't able to do it because it's only was zoned for a car lot for the, you know, the use permit. So people had called me over the past 5 months who wanted to rent it, and when I mentioned they have to come to the board, they lost interest. So I'm just trying to clarify so I can have it available immediately for people to rent it. Nothing crazy, small business, you know, something like that, or small, like you said, ice cream shop, coffee shop, something along those lines. Small office perhaps, you know, nothing crazy, but just to have it available where we approve instantly for someone to rent it. It's better than having it left unoccupied the way it looks, it's run down. I want to get it cleaned up and make it look nice for the town, pretty much. That's what I'm asking for. If you got any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
I knew someday I'd get even with you for that last car trade.
Uh-oh. Now's your chance, right?
You can put your car in.
Thank you, Mr.
It's ready to go.
Now, will there be, I'm back to
Albert,
Kevin, sorry.
Albert, should you recuse yourself since you haven't?
Well, I hate to tell you, all of us will
Ex parte,
have to
that doesn't count.
recuse because we've all bought cars from him.
Ex-parte, that doesn't count.
Yeah, that doesn't count. Will there be landscaping that will be added if,
There was not the intention to do that.
like,
The
will there be
state put it-
buffering or, because they used to have some really pretty flowers out there.
Yeah, the next tenant that we get, I'll be sure it's looking.
Right now, we're just.
Yeah.
If there's some things that you want to see, but right now, you know, the state's added some trees out in the front. Some are living, some are not. But
Oh, they
the
got-
idea,
They got the DOT trees?
yeah, they do.
Well, that's all you need.
There was the hedge continued further back, but a lot of those trees died between that
Yeah,
and
they
the
cut
place
it, I
next
think,
door.
on the front side.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Do I have a motion to close?
Yeah, let's call, to what?
Motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
We have a second. Okay. All those in favor?
Wait a minute.
All right. Now, do we have a motion?
I make a motion that we, accept this as is. Second.
We have a second from Albert. Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, Ron.
All right.
I had an epiphany, Ron.
Hey. All right, moving forward, the CZ 2017-02 in on Cornish Amendment to Master Plan. Kevin?
Thank you. John Winkler's making this request to an amendment to the site plan of the Inn at Cornish project located on the corner of Main Street and Cornish Road. The approved master plan allowed 3 encroachments into the street setback on Cornish Road. The architect has revised the plans to show an additional balcony and covered porch adjacent to the front corner of the building that was approved to encroach into the street setback when the project was approved by town council. The applicant is requesting the balcony deck addition to be approved to complete the functionality of the guest rooms and the overall aesthetics of the building. The setbacks in central business is 15 feet, measured from the back of that sidewalk. This sidewalk's been installed. I know y'all have seen that. The approved site plan indicated that 3 building corners would encroach in that setback. The proposed balcony and covered porch would also encroach 7.41 feet into the street setback and would be 7.59 feet from the back of the sidewalk. The concrete patio is already in place, but if it was just left as a patio, it is not subject to the setback requirements. Included in your packet was the original ordinance for the conditional zoning, the exhibits, which included specific language about those encroachments. I've also enclosed a site plan, a approved site plan, and then there showing for you is the covered patio and the deck that was approved to be there. And then they want to put it where the opening there is to match up with the front of that building. There's also a letter in your packet from Mr. Winkler, and then there was an oversight, I believe, on their part while they were finalizing the plans. So knowing that you approved the encroachments, there was not something that I could approve at the staff level on this plan, so, and the ordinance is specific to that, so we brought it back for you to review and consider that addition to the plan.
So I got a question. The pad, the concrete pad that's on the one far to the right, did we approve that? Did we approve the one? What?
This one was not on the original plan,
Oh, I thought.
but a patio is not subject to the setbacks because a lot of times those things are brought to grade. But if they were to cover it and put this on it, it is subject to the setbacks. You did approve this. Actually, this had a roof structure.
This is what we approved. It's in front of it. It's not the same.
Right, this part right here,
That
the porch
balcony's-
the balcony was not on the original.
I walked by there, and what we approved is right in front of the building, and that is not what we approved.
Did we approve, because to the left of that, there's another balcony.
Right, we did not.
And I don't
approve it.
remember approving that.
And it's not on the big sign right in front of the building.
And it's
about
not in
what
your
they're
picture,
approving.
but I took a picture of it. Did we approve that?
The
No,
balcony, no.
On the left?
no.
So there's 2.5 balconies completed. I mean, 1.5 completed, if you consider that half completed.
Yeah, there's one
Correct.
on the left side.
Okay.
It was an add-on to the functionality of these rooms to provide a balcony so people could come out and enjoy it.
Oh,
This is a
I
private room.
understand why they did it.
Yeah,
Look,
but the,
Sue,
That's not, okay.
that,
Okay, go ahead, Kevin.
that's on
But
the left.
because this one encroaches into the setback, and that's why I brought it back before you, because it required your specific approval for these 3 corners to encroach into the setback. So
What about the balcony on the left? Did you approve that?
I did,
Upstairs.
yes.
So
It was
you-
on the revised plan to add
But that does not
balcony.
encroach, does it?
No,
That's why.
So
It
you
followed
administratively
guidelines.
approved that one?
yes, sir,
Okay.
The one on the left?
Right.
yes.
Ah.
It had a porch, it didn't have a balcony, it just had a shed. Let me put down my laser. It just had a shed roof coming down off the edge on the left side. And they changed the entrance as part of changing the entry into the lobby. And the lobby's been expanded if you'll remember when they came the first time, the idea was that you would get a key, either email or a passcode, and you'd come into the parking garage and go into the room and did not have a front door lobby presence. Now they've changed that to make it where you can walk in and there's someone there to greet you.
So did they lose some bedrooms with the expansion of the lobby?
No. Still 21 rooms.
So what I'm understanding is you approved the balcony on the left, it's completed. Did they have the understanding that to bring this up to look like the other, that's why they added this?
They
Did
thought
they-
they thought the one in the back was part of what they had presented, but they did not, and they realized that, so they,
It's on the big sign, so how did they think it was part of what was presented?
I'll let you ask the applicant
Okay,
those questions.
okay.
But any other questions for me? And I'll come back. Be certainly glad to. Any other
So,
questions?
Kevin, I asked you, and the pad is okay, it's just when it goes above the pad,
That's right. When you start to either
When you
enclose
start
it,
building
add
on
a
the
structure,
pad.
that's right,
is why you're here.
right.
The back pad on the right, that has nothing above it.
Right. If they were not allowed to finish it, they would just backfill and grade this, put some rocks and landscaping around it, and have a place where they could walk out. They could even put, handrails or something. This could not be finished, so they would have, I think it's called a Juliet balcony, is that right? Where it's just, where you could open the doors, but not step out. So that was,
So did you approve the balcony on the left right here?
yeah,
You approved two balconies, because there's another one on the
Yeah.
other side.
yeah. It was just a
So
roof.
they're just trying to match it up.
Yeah, it was just a roof here. This was already gonna be built. This was part of the plan. But they decided the way they configured the rooms to have an opening instead of a window there, so the people that are staying in that level could come out onto a patio or balcony.
So the top balcony isn't gonna have a roof then?
No.
Do you,
Function
is,
and form.
is the
look
one
better
on the
to
left
me
finished?
To do it.
No,
Well, it's just the way it is right now.
Not this one, the other one.
yeah, I got it.
Is that finished?
No, it's right here.
Who's gonna answer my question? You.
It's under construction, it's essentially that.
Oh, you're right.
That portion of the, over on the left, that's the main entrance to the lobby. This is an entrance to a guest room, the one that's got the lobby.
Oh, I see what you.
That is an entrance to the multi-purpose room with a guest room above.
Okay. How are you gonna finish that one on the not this one, but the one all the way over? Is there gonna be a roof?
No, the railings.
Just railings?
Yeah, just a real.
It really added to the amenity of the guest room to be able to walk out and just sit and watch the street, watch the public. Enjoy the evening.
So the lobby is now that spot?
I really can't see it.
You don't have a pic, yes?
Yes, I
Okay.
saw your photo, yes.
Okay.
I got it.
I got it.
Any other questions, guys?
It's right there.
Move to close the public hearing.
This wasn't a public, this wasn't.
Oh, that's right, that's right.
Do we have a motion?
Yeah, I mean, I think if we've allowed them to do the other, it just makes sense visually to put that up.
So,
I didn't realize that you had approved it, because I didn't remember approving it.
Well, visually, they're even now with that one. and
Without the other one?
With this one. So now they're even, and the one behind it is an extra one, so you have two balconies on this side and one on the left.
Right.
But
So
you have
if you
one
feel
under
like-
every window.
If you feel like two on one side is even with one on the other.
all right, okay. This
Because
was a
here-
public hearing, it was not sworn. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Did anybody else want to speak?
Anybody else?
You haven't opened it to the public.
Here, Brent wants to speak.
Do I have a motion to open the public hearing? Would you fellas like to speak?
So moved.
Or anybody
Second.
for or against?
Come on, Brent.
This is what they're supposed to do.
We need, just don't shoot.
I'm getting permission to do the other at this point.
Here's the plans too.
Good. I'm Brent Davis. Thank you for hearing our request tonight. The reason that we think this is super important for us is if we're able, if you approve our porch here, it's going to give us a covered entry for our multi-purpose room. The guest room up here has a private balcony. This is one of our larger guest rooms, and we just think it would really add to the, not only the curb appeal, the street appeal, but give this but guest a nice place to come out and enjoy the street. But this will be a covered entry to our multi-purpose room. This is a guest room, that's a guest room. Originally, you did mention that this did have a porch on it, but if it has a porch, you know, we converted it to a balcony. It had a roof, but really didn't function, but now it does. So that's our request tonight, is just to
So
have
how
that
did
covered
it
porch.
happen that this was not,
We approved it as a roof.
I see what we approved.
Right.
This is not what we approved. So how did it happen that you're building it and you build what we didn't approve?
The rendering was done so far in advance that we really hadn't had a chance to look at a lot of the operational issues for the building, how they would work. So the rendering was just done very, very early on in the stage. As we got through and working through the construction drawings, we submitted it as a balcony as opposed to a shed roof, which was approved as part of our building permit. But we didn't really see that much difference between a non-usable shed roof and a very usable balcony.
Define one of our larger bedrooms. How many people in that room?
It's a larger unit. It'll have, is it one bedroom or two? Scott?
It's a king suite.
It's a king suite. Is it two bedroom or just the one? It's got a large living area and one bedroom.
So I guess the concern of the residents around and the balcony being open. So, and the noise. So that's part of what we need to be conscious of. So if you have like a king suite, are there limits on parties or whatever?
You're not gonna have any huge parties in that suite. It's a larger hotel room. It's not 1,000 square foot suite where you're gonna have 10 people staying. It's one king bed. You know,
Maybe
it's
a
not any
sofa bed.
larger, you know, it's a few square feet larger, but it's not functionally larger than the suite approved beside it.
Okay.
Which would be this one.
And that's a king too?
That's a king suite.
So it could be a patio like it is now.
On the main level? or the upper
This
level?
is a multi-purpose room on the lower level. This is the guest room above.
Like TV is what I'm guessing. TV, playroom, movies.
It's just a large living area.
Large living area.
Plus,
That's all
you
it
got
is.
kids.
Okay. Other questions, guys?
Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Do we have anyone else who would like to speak in favor or against?
Thanks.
We have a motion to close.
Make a motion to close.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right, do we have a motion?
Sue had one earlier.
Yeah.
I did?
No.
You started one, I thought.
Well, I did start it, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, aesthetically, I think if we're gonna do it, we need to finish off the one on the right.
But it is finished. There is a pad there.
I meant with a balcony, I mean, to make it look like it. I do see that in the visual aspect, so I would make a motion to approve as presented.
Okay, do we have a second? Albert seconded. Any further discussion?
I'm just, this is a random question. Kevin, if we have people that don't follow our plans, are there fines for that?
There's not fines, either they have to build it the way it's designed.
Or they stop?
Can I speak to that? It's very accusatory, and it
No,
sounds
we
like
closed
Mr. Scott, if I need to be sworn in, I will. Okay.
No, wait.
We closed it.
Closed it.
We closed the public. Kevin, if you would.
Isn't he part of the architectural team,
Kevin.
Part of the build team.
building team? So he should.
Well, I'd like to hear from the man.
Kevin, go ahead.
Just to address, there's not fines, I mean, they're gonna build the building, according to the building code.
Right.
There's some small things that need to be changed, they're gonna bring them before council that would require that, or they would be administratively approved.
Right.
So we haven't, we don't issue fines for that.
Right, it just, you would say, stop as it is, or continue,
Yeah,
or
which is what we
allow,
did.
allow.
We stopped here and
Right.
we brought it back to council for approval.
Right.
We realized there was a lapse between what was submitted to council, what was approved by town, so we stopped and we're here presenting it now.
Okay.
The issue is, do you want to grant errors in admission? Because that's what happened here.
Right,
The architect failed to look at it. It's nobody's fault here
right.
or anything like that. So the issue is, do you want to grant his request for him to add this that he would like, or not? Because it's building a structure encroachment. Sue's recommendation is, yes, we do. We want to let him go ahead and do it.
Right.
What I would like to just merely say is that I think all of us has got a couple of love notes in the email about noise and all that. There's noise from that area, from Chatola, every weekend. Every weekend. And then there's just a lot of noise down there. And there's not going to be, I don't think there's going to be a lot of noise.
Well, we now have enough police officers to enforce the no.
Yeah, we got
noise
more,
ordinance.
we just, yeah.
We'll
So,
get more
All right.
so I don't think that that's,
You'll get from there.
We
I
have a
think that's
motion.
enough not to do it.
We have a motion from Sue. We have a second from
That's all.
Albert.
And
But you-
we're
but
we're
that's the
discussing,
discussion.
Charlie, we're discussing.
We're discussing it. And so I just wanted to bring that out, that there have been people who have said they're afraid of the noise. That's not what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid of, which I'll talk to you all about later, when we talk about, is the road itself. So,
What, the
but I
Cornish
go
Road?
with you.
Cornish Road? You're afraid of Cornish Road?
Cornish.
Is there a way that we can get the outside, the plans to match? I mean, is that an exorbitant expense? To get,
Here,
with the new balconies, so people see what's coming up?
as far as on the rendering, on the sign out front?
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Is that, I mean, I wouldn't want y'all to do an exorbitant extent, but people like to see what is, you know, it to match that.
We could remove the sign, the building's there now.
Well, yeah, that's one way to do it.
If we can address the concerns of the community, this balcony would not
That's
add any nuisance anymore. I mean, this is just intended to someone to go out on the balcony and.
Gentlemen, the public hearing is
Closed.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, let's move forward here.
Let's vote.
We have a motion on the table. We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Okay.
Where are we?
Now we're into TDA.
TDA, oh, yeah, I got something to say.
Moving forward. TDA bylaws and TDA, gentlemen, thank you and have a good evening. TDA bylaws and TDA establishment ordinances. Mr. Rothrock.
We got,
Big old
See you, Scott.
used to work down here at the real estate office. Rick Roberts. Which one is that? Because one in the upstairs Martin House. He retired. They didn't need to set that. Reggie, yeah.
The last one did, we did a lot.
okay. Okay, this is about TDA bylaws and TDA establishment ordinance and amendment to that. TDA has requested some clarifying language in the TDA establishment ordinance, which was 2013-15, that would provide flexibility for town council membership on the TDA board. Currently, the TDA membership requires a council member to be on the TDA. Language states, quote, "At least one member of the 5-member Tourism Development Authority shall be a Town of Blowing Rock elected official, which, based on qualification, may represent any one of the 3 classifications," end quote. There could be potential conflicts with filling the TDA board with a council member if the member doesn't fit into one of the 3 categories: lodging, business tourism, or at-large, particularly if a current TDA board member is the at-large member and the town council member does not fit into one of those lodging or business tourism categories. If the town council member doesn't fit into either lodging or business tourism category, the minimum number required for those categories can be waived during that term. Proposed language is shown below to reflect these changes with the new language underlined. A final ordinance amendment would be drafted if approved. The part that's underlined would go on after the end of that last quote. If the elected official does not represent either the lodging or business tourism-related classifications, the membership representation requirement of the classifications shall be waived during the term of the elected official. That's what we came up as staff, a way to solve that problem.
May I make a recommendation?
Absolutely.
I feel it's important for somebody from town council to be on that board. And I don't know that other people agree with me, but I think it's very important that one of us be on. Why don't we just change group 1, lodging is 2 appointees, because they're the ones who get the occupancy tax. Move group 2 from business/tourism related to 1 appointee. Group 3, I like having somebody at large, 1 appointee. That way, if one of the business people could also be at large, I think that would still be your 5, and it wouldn't matter whether somebody on the board is part of the tourism or not. Does that make sense? So that would total 5. We would just reduce business/tourism related to 1 appointee instead of 2.
Either way,
I mean, that was my thought, because I think it's so important to have a town council person on.
yeah, and the idea is that we think so too. It was-
Right, I know, it just seems, well, if the person's this and you do that, just break it down like that.
So the town council member doesn't have to be anything except a town council member.
Right.
That's right.
And then
And then the way that you have it is,
Just that way too, yeah.
you don't have to worry about.
You don't have,
moving
you just,
back and forth whether they are.
as long as the council member's on there. The problem is if that council member is not the at-large, and you've already got an at-large on there that's not in the other 2, if you put the council member on, you got to have some language that would say, all right, waive that requirement so they can be on there and not have any
And
conflicts.
this way, you wouldn't have to waive it. You could just have somebody from the town council would be appointed, because we appoint you. Correct. Does this require a motion?
Yeah.
I make a motion that we change, this isn't a public hearing, I'm okay. That we change the bylaws to the following. The group 1 would be lodging with 2 appointees. And that would have the same little thing underneath it. Group 2 would be business/tourism related, 1 appointee. Same thing, and it would be 1 member shall be an individual with business and/or tourism. Group 3 at large would be 1 appointee, and that one member, and that, well, I don't know, you say group, I guess you could say group 4 is one appointed member of the town council.
Yeah. Sound good?
Yep.
Okay.
Same
Do we have,
thing.
do we have a second?
Sure, sounds good.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. Okay.
Sounds good to me. They recruited me to do this. I was like, I don't even involve.
Lawyer.
Well, if it's approved, it sounds good to me.
Okay, what's
Alright,
the First Baptist?
moving forward, First Baptist Church,
Cole.
Baptist.
request for sidewalk parking agreement.
Okay. I think I got slide, yeah.
Is there anyone from First Baptist Church here?
No, but I talked to Reggie Bray today. He said he could not come. He's the head of the, what do you call it?
He's
Deacon.
He's a deacon chair.
I won't tell you why he said he couldn't come until later.
Okay.
He's probably playing cards.
That's not the
All
reason.
right, Kevin, go for it.
Well, First Baptist Church is requesting an agreement with the town to formalize the sidewalk, curb and gutter, landscape, parking lot, and crosswalk commitments related to the Sunset Drive streetscape project. The church is planning to build a small gravel parking lot on the property at 411 Sunset Drive, which is across the street from the church, and steps to connect to the sidewalk. The church is requesting the town pay for the steps and install a crosswalk on Sunset Drive. The preliminary cost for the steps is $12,000. Also, there's a preliminary parking plan that's here. That shows 12 parking spaces down in the bottom. Where's my laser?
They took it away from him.
I know. Steps coming up out of the parking lot, up to grade with a crosswalk over to the church.
How much
With-
did they pay into the sidewalks that we built on their property? How much did they pay for that?
Nothing.
The ones to
Already
build.
got sidewalks.
They didn't.
But no curb and
Yeah,
gutter.
anyway.
We
That
That was
built
it.
new ones.
That was a replacement.
That's part of the Sunset Project.
Right,
Now, the 12 parking
but on
places
their property, for free,
are
Yeah,
going to
they allowed us
be
to do it
gravel.
on their property.
Yes, sir.
for free.
If they're more than 12, they have to be,
They could have said no.
don't they
Hey.
have to be paid?
If it's more than 10, it has to be paved if they're also used more than 4 or 5 days a week. This is typically used Sundays and sometimes Wednesday nights. So,
But is there the option that that could be a larger parking lot?
yes, sir. We just kind of looked at, this is the floodway line, so that no encroachment or no additional fill into that. But if this was turned in this direction, probably 20 to 22 spaces, maybe a few more. Just,
What he conveyed to me today was that the church will give us the property to make that parking lot as big as we want.
Public parking?
Yeah.
As big as we want.
Excluding like Wednesday nights and Sundays.
Is the parking on their, that diagonal parking on their private property, public parking officially?
No.
oh, it's theirs. But we can utilize it on weekdays,
Yeah.
maybe weekends.
Well,
That-
what he's
Anybody
talking
can-
about,
yeah.
what he's talking about is a gift of enough land to build whatever parking we want there.
But
Can we
they
put
also,
a parking deck on in that area?
No, he didn't go that far.
they didn't go that far.
Well, I mean,
You
can
could.
we do it since it's the floodplain behind it?
You could do a lot of things up to this line here. You know, you could build back in here. So,
Oh, yeah.
Do we have that in writing, Albert?
I'm sure we can get it in writing.
part of the reason on initiating this process is to come up with a formal agreement that might identify some of these things together.
I mean, I just think it's an opportunity to discuss and look at pretty hard, because who knows what's gonna happen with the old drugstore. So business may move that way.
Yeah.
The concern that I had was the repetitive comments that everything was the church's property. This is the church's asphalt, this is the church's sidewalk, And I think we need to clear that up, Mr. Fox.
Need a memorandum.
And I would say that what's presented before you is a agreement that is more than just parking. And so I would ask for the agreement to be tabled maybe for a later discussion, and allow myself a chance to speak with them, to put something more in writing in the way of an MOU to address those issues. And this be a separate issue, this be a separate decision, separate from the agreement. And so one can be predicated on the other, but it would allow me the time and the opportunity to further vet the services that are being shared from the town and the church itself.
I'd like to see all that in writing, because I
Yes.
feel like, you know, who keeps their flowers up and who, you know.
Now, let me address that. They're perfectly amenable to the town taking care of those bump outs.
Sure. For
Well,
free.
are they?
well, they want
That's nice.
consistency, up and down Sunset.
I feel like, what we have kind of an understanding with them. I'd like to see something written, because
Yes.
what if that understanding dies with the deacon or the priest or whoever it is that keeps that information? If we could have it written down, I think that would be better for the town, because we'll come and go, they'll come and go, and to have something
That's
in
what
writing
just
would
came out of the
be,
mayor's
Shane,
mouth.
to get that in writing would be good.
Why don't we table
Well,
this?
I make a motion,
Wait.
I make a motion that we table.
Wait a minute, hold on.
Hold on.
I would like for the church to know if we have a bias toward expanding the parking lot to be beyond the 12 places as their gift to us.
Let's,
Do we have an interest in that?
I think what we need to do, Albert, is let our town manager discuss this with them and bring it back to us,
That's fine.
okay?
And I would say that giving what's being presented here, and I may speak incorrectly, but what's being presented here, the 12 spaces, the gravel, the impervious, obviously, that's there, would change and will definitely change as we expand. And so to what extent do we expand? Those are much more detailed conversations to be had, and cost estimates to be eventually put together to see what the interest level
Well,
would be for the
you're
town.
knowledgeable that the offer has been made to the town by the church.
Yeah, I would say we appreciate their offer, and we're taking under advisement.
Okay.
And after a meeting with you and the powers that be down there, and so that you can bring it back to us with, here's what we got going for the sidewalk area, and that's one issue, and then the over here is what they propose on the other deal.
Am I hearing the opportunity as I speak with them to speak towards potential additional parking? Is that part of that
Yeah.
conversation?
Yeah.
We love
And I concur with Jim on, and do thank him on that, because I think all the churches that we have in town, because if it wasn't for like St. Mary's, Rumpel, and Baptist opening their parking lots up to us for public parking, we would be in dire.
We need it,
Yeah.
we need it, man.
We do, we need to.
We
Just
need
just
it.
for clarification, as I enter the conversations, to make sure that I have the leniency
Yeah.
there to have the
Yeah.
conversation. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion from Sue. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, so be it. In your lap.
So you can bring it back when you're ready, when it's convenient.
Absolutely.
All right, moving forward, ad hoc committee discussion.
One more.
You again.
Me again. The ad hoc committee has met on 3 occasions since the inception of the group in April of 2019. The committee has discussed the comprehensive plan, visioning for Highway 321 bypass, visioning for downtown, current commercial design and sign ordinances, the overall scope and purpose of the ad hoc committee. The committee also reviewed the current zoning and land uses on Valley Boulevard and the potential for development of each parcel. At the July 1st meeting, the committee agreed to present its purpose and potential action plan to town council for feedback and direction. The ad hoc committee purpose. The purpose of the ad hoc committee is to begin the process to address quality growth that will enhance the town while minimizing negative consequences. With community input, the committee will develop a vision for Valley Boulevard. The committee will design a visual product to present to residents and business owners. This product should show good and bad changes to Valley Boulevard with the growth and preservation recommendations for Main Street and Sunset Avenue. The committee will attempt to gain consensus in the community to incorporate the desired suggestions. In the action plan, to focus on visioning, planning, and action steps. 1, draft a request for proposal to seek professional planning consultant to serve as a facilitator to help craft a vision for Valley Boulevard through community involvement. The consultant will review the 2014 comprehensive plan to determine the framework in place to develop a vision. 2, after developing a vision, it is recommended that the consultant continue to serve the committee to recommend guidelines and amendments to the land use ordinance to support the vision. The consultant should produce a written document as well as visuals to help educate the community and gather public input and develop an action plan. So we're here tonight to ask for your recommendations on what we've presented as a group.
Is anybody going to speak to this? Okay.
Kevin's our
Kevin's spokesman.
spokesperson.
Any comments?
What are your thoughts, guys?
Well, when we formed the ad hoc committee, I haven't looked back over the minutes or anything, but I remember that y'all were gonna identify all the properties along Valley Boulevard and kind of give a vision for growth along Valley Boulevard. We've already done Main Street and Sunset, all of that. That's what I thought that the ad hoc committee was for, Valley Boulevard.
Only.
Right, so this is Main Street, Sunset, it's getting bigger here. I mean, this sounds like more of a, strategic plan for the whole town.
Well, we wanted to use the, Kevin, you okay if I jump in?
Absolutely.
We wanted to incorporate the current comprehensive plan from 2014 and look at that. And part of gaining knowledge and vision about Valley Boulevard, you have a perfect opportunity to pull in Main Street and Sunset from what's already been discussed in the comprehensive plan. So I think we found that that needs to be looked at as well, but our concentration on what we need to do is going to be on Valley Boulevard.
Well, I would say that one, we've already spent enough money on Sunset.
Yeah,
So we don't need to have another consultant or anybody else. We're looking at, because it seems to me we've already decided
We voted
what
that down.
Sunset is.
Yeah,
Clearly, for the last 8 years that I know of, we've decided what to do on Main Street. It was pretty clear that what the building heights were, what the buildings were gonna be like, whole 9 yards. So Main Street's finished, pretty much. So I don't see the planning. Now tell me where I'm wrong on that.
I don't think it's planning. I think it's being
Well-
able to look at what we have there.
You
what
certainly
people-
can look at it.
What people want, and then the vision part and the written part is gonna be for Valley Boulevard.
well,
That's what
I
makes
like this, except take out Sunset and Main Street, because we voted down the Sunset, and Albert was like, well, there went $68,000 for that consultant. We voted that down for the Gateway and Sunset and all of that. We've got our plan in place with the water and sewer, and Sunset's done. When we just recently talked about all the, Sue Glenn brought all that information. We talked about Main Street, that's done. And then, that's when we formed the ad hoc committee. And you guys were gonna, and I haven't seen that, maybe you've done it, all the property owners along, I thought y'all were gonna produce some kind of document with all the property owners, what's there, the potential of Valley Boulevard. on
Yeah,
there.
I think you're misunderstanding. We're not talking about changing what Sunset looks like. We're just saying that the person who we're choosing needs to know what that's gonna look like to be able to see what the vision they're gonna create for Valley Boulevard.
What it says here is recommendations for Main Street and Sunset. That's what this document says.
Yeah, take that off, and we're good with Valley Boulevard.
So we say no. We're saying, I don't think that's right. The
All
other
right.
thing is that I don't think, right now, I would commit, if I were you, in your RFP, I don't think I would commit that whoever you get is gonna follow this thing through to whatever we decide to the end.
We're not gonna do that. This is
Well,
probably a two-step
it
process.
says right here. It says something about it, following it to the end.
Where's that?
Well, I'll get it for you.
Okay.
It's,
Where's the
it's
where's,
consultant to continue to serve the committee to recommend guidelines and amendments, so on its lands, to support all the visions. That's what it says.
Wait, where do you have that?
Number two. Number two, continue to serve the committee. Seems to me that once he
well,
submits.
that's only with step one, and that would be what Valley Boulevard vision is gonna be after talking to the community.
Well, I guess I don't see what he would continue to, how he would serve. If you come back with.
He would only continue to serve if the town council wanted him to. This is step
Oh, okay.
one. Step two would be up to the town council to decide what to do with the information that he
Okay.
produces.
Okay,
Okay,
that's fine.
all right.
All
So
right.
where's
But
the,
but the thing says you wanted to have a purpose and an action plan. So so what I would think you guys would want to work on is your RFP.
well, we're coming here to get your permission to do that.
Yeah.
That's why we're here.
Can you
Well,
mark
how
through
can you,
Sunset and Main Street?
We can do whatever y'all want, because this is at the, if no one else on the committee, or on the board wants to have this person look at the comprehensive plan, we can do that. That was actually a
what I'm
recommendation.
afraid of is we're gonna get a report back that says, let me tell you about the opportunities you have. Your town is made up of 1,300 people during the year, and this is primarily it's a tourist town, and we're gonna get 4 or 5 pages of something like that. And I'm telling you, we went through this when we did the Wine Culinary Institute to the tune of $50,000, and they gave us, I think, 30 or 40 pages, and 30 of the pages was history about our town. And this board right here knows everything about our town.
Well, I don't think that's gonna happen,
I hope not.
because we have Kevin on the committee, we have excellent people, Al's on it. And so the first step is to produce, something to take to the community so they can decide what they want. But
On
we
Valley
cannot
Boulevard.
do it on Valley Boulevard.
So I would add, the purpose of tonight is to essentially approve the purpose and the next steps, the action steps. No,
That's right.
there is no.
That's what this is. That's
yeah,
fine.
The budget,
Those out.
the budget that was approved as of 7/1 included a $20,000 placehold. This does not authorize and obligate that $20,000.
Right.
The next step,
Understand
the next step would be to bring options from potential
Recommend.
individuals or entities that would be willing to offer that service.
And what
On
we would
cost
like
factor.
to do is to interview 2 or 3 people and then bring that back to you. With recommendations.
Does that settle the issue that Virginia has raised?
Yeah,
Which,
my,
I agree with Virginia.
Well, I don't think it was, the committee was gonna do any recommendation to change Sunset or Main Street. I think it was to
Wait,
look at it in
but
the
it's
context.
the wording in there, if we just
What are we
take
gonna
out
be
that
talking
word.
about Main Street for then?
Well, you're not, I hope. You don't
I
need
think
to.
Where's
if
the
you could
wording?
just take that out.
That's
of
a
what-
city take on it.
Why don't we do
You
this?
need to
Main
cross that out.
Street.
That's not part of the purpose.
Virginia, would you like to make a motion?
I like to make a motion. So it says add, thank you for sharing. It says ad hoc committee purpose. The purpose of this is to begin the process to address quality growth that will enhance the town while minimize, this is all great. The next paragraph, it says, in that paragraph, it says, with community input, the committee will develop a vision for Valley Boulevard. The next paragraph, the community
Period.
will design a visual product to present to residents, shows good and bad changes to Valley Boulevard. period.
Okay, is that, are you
The,
making a
if we
motion?
could strike out with growth preservation recommendations for Main Street and Sunset Avenue. That's not Valley Boulevard.
Okay, are you making a motion? I'm sorry, Virginia.
Yes, that's what
Okay,
I was just
okay.
telling.
All right,
That was my motion, to just,
Okay.
if we could put the
so
period.
you're scrapping Sunset and
Main Street and
Okay.
Sunset. If
All
we
right.
could just focus on, like when we came up with the ad hoc committee, we were.
Second.
Okay, we have a second.
No, I want to hear a motion.
Okay, any
I
other-
want to hear the motion read.
She just read it.
Good luck.
No, we've gotten a jam about
No, I do not. Can we, did you just strike that out?
There it is. Here's the motion.
So it's this right here, right?
this. We've gotten a jam not reading these things.
Just both paragraphs? That's perfect, if you wish. That's perfect, Callie has it. Okay. So, all right, so the purpose of the ad hoc committee is to begin the process to address quality growth that will enhance the town while minimizing the negative consequences. With community input, the community will develop a vision for Valley Boulevard. Next paragraph is the committee will design a visual product to present to residents and business owners. The product should show good and bad changes to Valley Boulevard, period. The committee will intend to gain consensus in the community to incorporate the desired suggestions.
Is that your motion?
Yes.
Okay, we got a second?
Yeah.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all opposed? Okay, so passes.
Okay.
Good night.
You got that, Kevin?
I got it.
All right.
Who's next?
Miss Nicole Norman.
Yeah, we've got
Financial
to, we
reports.
want to interview like
Light
We don't want
side.
to go on just,
Eggs over light.
so, and then what we'll do is come back to get y'all's permission.
Gosh, what you do?
Wow. Boy, you just,
Sorry.
you just take everybody.
Y'all staying?
It's not you, Nicole. Okay.
They have to stay.
What did you do?
I'm sorry. I'm not that entertaining.
Oh, yeah.
You say-
We're interested in what you
This
have to
stuff is
Show
say.
yourself short.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. And tonight I have for you the financial report as of June 30th, 2019. This is about 98% into fiscal year 18-19. There are audit closing entries that remain and accruals to be made, as well as outstanding invoices that we will continue to pay out of last year as the year progresses, just due to the timing of those invoices. So these are not our final numbers. Those numbers will be presented with the audit in December. So 2018 property tax collections total $4,274,309. This is 102% of budget, and it's about 5% more than last fiscal year and 1% above budget pace for last year at this time. Motor vehicle taxes for the 11 months collected so far total $84,362, or 105% collected so far. This is remaining about 7% more than last fiscal year at this time. Sales tax collections total $1,521,845, or 84% of collections through April, which is a 10-month period. This remains also about 3% higher than last year's collections at this time. Building permits total $82,238, or 117% of budget. Zoning fees total $10,734, or 107% of budget. Water service charges through the 6 main billings total $889,355. This is 95% of budget, which is about 10% below budget pace compared to last year, but 3% higher collections compared to last year. Sewer service charges through the 6 main billings total $739,539, which is 99% of budget. This is 6% below last year's budget pace and 4% higher for collections than last year. Water connection fees total $30,767, or 181% of budget. Sewer connection fees total $49,181, or 307% of budget. And on the overall picture for the general fund, our expenses are at 97%. This is 9% above last year at this time, while the revenues are also at 97%, 6% below last year at this time. On the water sewer side, the overall expenditures for the water fund are at 71%. This is 7% below last year's spending at this point, while the revenues, overall revenues for the water fund are at 82%. This is 28% last year. However, this is partially due to funding associated with installment loan proceeds and transfers that are outstanding. So when you factor those elements in, we're probably more like 93%, 95%. Departments are all in line with budget at this time. As an accounting note, our Parks and Recreation related system posting issues, we've corrected those and we believe those to be accurately reflected in this month's financial statement. Any questions?
I have a question, and I know you probably answered this to us earlier this year. How many properties and where are we at in the process on last year's who have not paid their property taxes? As far as have we started any type of process against them, and where are we at on that?
I will refer to our tax collector for an update there.
Where are we at on last year's uncollectibles so far on property taxes? People haven't paid any on last year's.
2017.
Right.
I'd have to look and see exactly, but we've gotten a lot. I don't think there was a whole lot for 2017, and there's not really a whole lot for 2018 either. I think it's about 59,000 for 2018, but I can pull.
Okay, because I knew the latest thing y'all sent out had quite a few names on it, was a lot more than last, that we had got probably from you.
So what happens a lot is, even for 2018, as 2019 goes on, even when we start collecting for 2019 taxes, then this property, especially when properties sell, and if there's back taxes, people start paying those. I know we had one entity that it had probably about 5 years that were back taxes, and it was paid. So I can look at that and see which one's
Any other questions, guys? For Ms. Norman? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job, Nicole.
All right, moving forward, official reports. I don't have any comments this evening. Mr. Yance?
Well, I want to thank the new manager for his command presence and his quick take on our current situation and problems. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
It's, I like it.
Mr. Steele?
Wait a minute.
Oh, you're still reading. You got a whole list.
I knew that wasn't in.
Should we take a recess?
No, you can sit there and be quiet and listen. At our bi-monthly meeting, which I have with the manager, he and I discussed, or mainly I discussed with him, what can we do, if anything, to migrate toward conditional zoning versus conditional use permitting. Given the fact that the largest city in North Carolina, Charlotte, uses exclusively conditional zoning. And the manager told me tonight that Kevin had done research on this with the school government and was prepared to give a quick take on some things, so I wish we could hear that.
I did send a request on that question, Albert, to Adam Lovelady and Dave Owens at the School of Government. Adam was in his office, responded, and I gave him the idea that we've had conditional use permits since 1984, and we added conditional zoning in 2014. And could we just do away with CUPs and have just a one sole process of conditional zoning? And is it possible? Also understanding that we have current CUPs on various properties, and if they were to make changes, how could that be done? And Adam Lovelady responded, there is no requirement to have conditional use permits, so we could opt to just have conditional zoning. We would need still a quasi-judicial process for variances, but that would be through the Board of Adjustment for single-family issues that come up. Each option, quasi-judicial, conditional use permit, and legislative conditional rezoning, is a tool that can be used however we see fit as a town. Quasi-judicial conditional use permits allow the town to identify certain uses as possibly allowed in a certain district, to set standards for when that use is allowed, and to base a decision on evidence from the applicant. Of course, this comes with the procedural formality of a quasi-judicial process. This can be delegated to the planning board or Board of Adjustment. Conditional zoning allows the town to make decisions about certain uses, but with slightly less procedural formality than the CUP. And that's one of the reasons we adopted it, because of the ability to see something on the front end and make decisions before everything is poured out in a formal setting. Through conditional zoning, we can still make those decisions, but we would still have to follow the procedures for legislative decisions, like a rezoning, and would have to go to planning board. Conditional use permits really don't have to go to planning board. They can just, it's just an advisory and it could come straight to you anyway. But conditional zoning would have to go that way because it's legislative. Each option allows the town to put in site-specific conditions for a particular development project. With regard to the existing CUPs that we currently have, they would be grandfathered in and can continue. And also, those are recorded. As for the amendments, the town could preserve a quasi-judicial process for those if they're going to amend an existing CUP, and then authorize staff to make the minor modification to those, or require the applicant to seek a new approval to start over through conditional zoning or a standard rezoning for that project. So I can pass that information along to you so you can take a quicker look, but it is possible.
What's the process for doing it? Did he talk about that, or do you know that?
Well, it's legislative in that you're making a change to the town code, and that review would go through planning board for a recommendation and come to you to make that change to the ordinance.
Can we send it to planning board to review?
If you can.
Would y'all like to send it to planning board? Hey, guys, would y'all like to send that idea to planning board for a review?
As long as one of the things that I'd like to get back from that would be the pluses and minuses of making any changes.
Right.
What are the positives of doing it this way? What are the negatives of change? That's all.
And I think Albert just brought this up for discussion, so I really don't want to, myself, personally, do anything with it tonight other than
No,
absorb it and take it home and think
I
about it.
Guys,
I don't recommend that at all.
You don't
First
want
off,
to send it to planning board to
Not,
that-
not until we.
Wasn't on the
this is not on the agenda.
One night
Okay.
agenda.
It doesn't matter.
And so,
Right.
but now that you brought it up, now it's been brought up, this will give the planning board time to get their ducks in a row.
If you two guys think
Okay.
it's worthwhile, we're glad for listening to it. Just send it to the planning board, have him think about it, talk about it, come up with their recommendations. But I'd like to hear, I'd like to know part of that, pluses and
One
minuses.
question of Kevin, I don't think so, but does this require General Assembly approval?
No, it's already. A brief comment, conditional use permits, that project or that use is allowed on a particular piece of property based on that zoning conditionally, and it does give the developer an informal bundle of rights that if they meet the code, there's a strong chance that they can get that project approved. A conditional rezoning doesn't provide that. It's rezoning. Y'all can just say, we're not interested. And so for the developer, from that point of view, there's a little bit more uncertainty that's like, I'm not sure that I want to go through the process if I don't have some assurances through the code that I get approved. So that's just a brief
So I
overview.
guess that would be
looking
on
at
the negative side for the
Yeah, that
developer.
would be on the negative.
But we've
So,
only had,
all right.
that happened once in 18 years.
So I would ask, given the question was asked today or yesterday, and the answers that were presented as of today, to allow us time to do some more research and speak with the planning board on potentially developing some positives and negatives that could be presented back to this council.
Still got a list? Okay,
Run get me a cup of coffee now.
Mr. Steele.
Yeah, I got a couple of things that this Cornish Road, or whatever it is, it's pretty dangerous. Going towards north on it, you make that turn at the new hotel, and there's a lot of shrubbery and all that kind of stuff there. You can't see any of the cars that are coming, and it's a very, very narrow street. Matter of fact, I'm not sure that two cars could actually pass right there at that curve. So I looked at, and right on the right-hand side, as you're going that way, is a stone wall. So we can't very well expand the street that way by a foot or two without tearing down, getting into other people's yards. On the other side is a new sidewalk. So something has got, I think somebody better look at that and find out what can be done, because it is a dangerous street. So if you have somebody look, I don't know that anything can be done
I
to
thought
it.
we talked, didn't the developer of that hotel?
He said he was gonna put in, he said he was gonna put in a new sidewalk,
Yeah, they weren't gonna
But
widen
he
the bridge.
didn't-
They weren't gonna widen the bridge.
but I can tell you that,
They
expanded,
The entrance.
the road was more narrow than it is today. They expanded, about a foot in some places to the face of the curb.
yeah,
They put in the curb and gutter.
yeah.
But, you know, if it was straight, they've got 18 feet pavement to the face of the curb. But if it was straight, it's different. But in that curve, it's a different situation.
Well, you can't even see the cars coming. That's the problem. I mean, I don't know, I mean, if, even experienced drivers, when they come up there, I mean, it's a challenge. So somebody, we better look at it, because otherwise, I think it's an accident waiting to happen.
Possibility of making it one way.
Yeah, something.
That's what,
Yeah.
If that's what you have to do, then maybe that's what you
one,
have to do.
one way out to 321.
But we just put in a new exit, we just put in a brand new exit off of 321 there. Brand spanking new,
You what?
an exit off of 321 onto Cornish at that location.
DOT did.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, DOT did.
All right.
Yeah, we didn't do it. But somebody, I'd like to, somebody take a
Well,
look.
you can't come in there off of 321.
You
So
can't
it's-
come in.
You can if you're going south.
You turn right, you can go in there.
Oh, right, you
Yeah.
can.
Yeah, thank
Okay.
you.
Ms. Sweeting.
I do, no, wait, I'm not finished.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Easy.
What?
Number two, water and sewer. Nicole just gave a report that we're 13% in a deficit. There's gotta be a reason for that. And on your things to do, I would appreciate it if you would find out why we're in a deficit.
Sure.
I mean, it could be two or three things, but we can't continue that way. And we can't keep raising fees for that, because something's wrong. This is the first time I can, Doug, do you remember being in a deficit before? No.
Not unless
So
we've
would
done
you
some major
just
work.
have to check into that? And now I yield, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir.
I
Mayor.
yield my time.
Councilwoman Sweeting.
Mayor.
I'm fine.
Mayor,
Mayor.
Mayor, okay, not chair.
Councilman Mathis.
Just the regular monthly update on Apple Cart. They had 129 riders again for the month of June.
Great.
I'm meeting with the driver who actually says he has some ideas that may enhance some of that a little bit. So
Great.
I will meet with him to see, to see what his take on it.
Thanks for taking the lead on that.
He's good on that.
Very good. Councilwoman Powell?
I had a question about the STR, registration form. Have we heard anything back from the League of Governments? We were told not to pay that. What's going on with that? It was due on the 1st of July, and you pay $100 registration form, but there was something that,
Who informed you, if I might ask?
Tammy?
And so Ms. Bentley and I spoke today.
Okay.
There are two different, very different schools of thought with the Senate Bill 483.
okay,
School of Government and the League of Municipalities have different interpretations at this point. And so we, as of today, Mr. Rothrock and myself have asked for further clearance on that particular bill in regards to the fact of whether or not we can continue to require an application and require a fee with the application. The School of Government is saying no to the application and the fee. The League of Municipalities is saying yes on their interpretation of Senate Bill 483. And so we're asking for further guidance, and we've asked that as of today from the School of Government to go further than what we currently have. And so that will be coming soon. As of right now, I did instruct Ms. Bentley to continue to receive applications and fees as they continue to come in. If the decision is made that we have to refund those, unfortunately, then that may be a decision that we have to make. There's also some potential other options in the way of other fees that could potentially be assessed as part of the short-term application, or not application, but use code, land code use, potentially. So essentially waiting for more clarification at this point.
okay.
But I apologize if that was told to you. We have now spoken as of today with Ms. Bentley to continue to accept those as submitted until we know otherwise.
Gotcha.
Mr. Mosley? And last but not least, Mr. Fox.
Certainly. Thank you for your time. I've got a few updates tonight. Let me start first with the Legacy Trail update. No one spoke tonight towards the Legacy Trail, but in the last month, there has been movement with some options presented. Myself and Mr. Blackburn have spoken to the DOT on some potential options in the way of pedestrian crossing signage. Most recently, this past week, this Monday, we did hear from the DOT that they would be allowing, or would be willing to install and fund pedestrian crossing signs on both sides of the Legacy Trail. That does not include the painting or the crossing across Main Street, just the signage. We've also spoken, Mr. Blackburn and myself, of potential signage at the bottom of the Legacy Trail informing individuals that they're entering oncoming traffic. We are currently waiting on a quote for a handrail and a gate to be put at the bottom of the trail to assist individuals up and down and to allow individuals the time to stop and open the gate versus entering oncoming traffic without having that ability. So at this point, no funds have been obligated, no funds have been spent. A quote will be coming in the near future very soon with the handrail and the gate that potentially could be there. So at this point, the DOT has only obligated those signs to help with assistance in Legacy Trail. Sunset Drive update. As of today, we did have our monthly progress meeting with Sunset Drive with McGill and Iron Mountain Construction. Just a couple things to add. The retaining walls are complete. The two retaining walls are complete. All sewer taps are complete at this point, and water work and water taps will begin next week. Binding has been put throughout Sunset and Ransom. The binding will be put down much quicker as we do the water taps. My understanding, and Mr. Chapman, correct me if I'm wrong, as the water taps are put in, the binding will be put down thereafter. And so the gravel dust issue that we've had in the past will no longer be an issue as the binding is put down after the water taps are put in. And so as each tap is being put in, the binding will be put in, I'm assuming thereafter. Is that correct in saying? Follow much closer.
Yeah.
So
So is that an extra charge?
No, ma'am, that is not something that that's not a change order.
Are they on schedule? Are they on schedule?
They have 111,
They have
111 days to completion. They have 111 days to completion.
So are they gonna make it?
We have not broached the subject of where that lies from a percentage standpoint, other than as we meet with them, we allow them the courtesy to have the 111 days as part of their contract. And so that discussion,
So they don't tell you, well, we're either on schedule or behind schedule or anything like that?
that is not part of the current conversation. It will become more of the conversation as we get closer towards that point. I will say that they've been very favorable to work with as we've worked with several different issues. Over the next 30 days, essentially, the main focus will be water and water taps to be put in. Also might add that the curb work and the sidewalk work in front of the First Baptist is complete. And so that will essentially, I believe, stop the concrete work as the water taps are being put in next. And so water is the next 30 days. And lastly, if I could, this was my first time on this side of the table. I've been a attendee of the parade and the festivities for a number of years. I would like to just give my compliments to our staff. The amount of work and time and effort, not only in the planning stages, but the actual execution stage of the 4th of July festivities this past weekend, to me were tremendous. The amount of hours, the amount of time that was spent leading up to, and then again during the execution of this weekend, I thought were absolutely fabulous and executed flawlessly. We had individuals here at different hours throughout the weekend to prepare for and then clean up thereafter the overall festivities, to the point that I would just like to say again publicly that I was very impressed and very complimentary of our staff and the work that went into it. I do think, I'm not sure of the numbers, we've not heard the numbers yet. I don't know if we will hear those numbers soon, but the numbers of the attendees to me seem to be great, and so everyone seemed to be having a very festive time. But that concludes my comments for tonight, and I appreciate your time.
Will you thank them for us?
Absolutely.
One of the best floats too was also from the town.
One of the best what? Floats?
Yeah,
Water gun?
no,
The cleanup crew.
the cleanup on the golf cart.
Oh, yeah.
All right,
Cooper Scooper?
Yeah, with the gas mask.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to ask, I think I know the answer to this, but I want to be sure. Is the recent scare relating to short-term rentals, which I will not define the scare, is that over?
For this year.
Okay.
Senate Bill 483
Yeah.
passed as the only current changes to short-term rentals.
And we were not injured? No.
The only potential, as we're waiting for clarification, would be whether or not we can continue to charge an application fee as part of the process. That we're waiting on clarification on.
Everybody happy? Ready to go?
Move we adjourn?
We have a motion?
Second.
He made it.
You made it?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Have a good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
I sent you a message.
Okay, Mrs. Calabash, wherever you are.